The Galactic King thought he was humiliating a human bride. He tore her veil, trampled her gifts, and called her husband a clerk. But he didn't realize this wedding was Earth's trap. Every guest was watched, every corridor mapped. The king chose the stage, but Earth wrote the script from the first act. The crystal hall glittered with deceptive beauty. Its arches rose like frozen lightning, each facet reflecting the assembled nobility in fractured perfection. This wasn't a wedding venue. It was a hunting ground draped in ceremonial silk. The human bride stood at the center, small against the towering aliens. Her white gown seemed almost offensive in its simplicity, amid their jeweled exoskeletons and bioluminescent patterns. Every movement she made was measured against 10,000 years of alien protocol. She didn't flinch when the Zrithian ambassador clicked his mandibles in derision. She didn't react when the Vorn matriarch deliberately turned her back during the gift presentation. The crowd's amusement began as whispers. Then came the subtle shifting of armored plates and rustling of membrane wings. They expected her to break under the weight of tradition. Instead, she offered a slight bow to the Xylos delegation that was precisely calibrated to acknowledge without submitting. Her hands remained steady. Her breathing never quickened. The amusement curdled into something like respect, then hardened into genuine awe. She wasn't just enduring their customs, she was mastering them in real time. Then the king entered. The atmosphere snapped from ceremony to theater of dominance. His armored boots echoed like gunshots in the suddenly silent hall. 6 guards flanked him, their energy pikes humming at full charge. He didn't look at the bride. He surveyed the crowd as if counting trophies. His first act was violence disguised as ritual. He tore the veil from her head with a clawed gauntlet, the fabric shredding like tissue. The traditional wedding gifts from Earth, handcrafted porcelain, data crystals containing humanity's cultural archives, a sapling from the last sequoia, he crushed beneath his boots. The porcelain powdered. The crystal sparked and died. The sapling snapped with a sound like breaking bone. He established his authority not through protocol but through destruction. The bride's voice cut through the silence, clear and dangerously calm. "Is this the wedding?" she asked. No tremor, no fear, just a question hanging in the air like a blade. The alien nobles perceived Earth's offering as trembling prey. They saw a fragile creature from a young world, brought before a hunter who had conquered star systems. They didn't see the calculation behind her eyes. They didn't recognize the precise angle of her shoulders as a combat stance. This moment shattered any illusion of alliance. The king had intended to demonstrate superiority, but he'd instead triggered Earth's opening move. The humiliation wasn't some diplomatic accident. It was the exact inciting incident Earth's strategist had calibrated for. They knew the king's pride would demand a spectacle. They counted on his need to dominate publicly. What they didn't anticipate was how perfectly their agent would play her part, how completely she would become the bait. They called him a clerk in uniform. The king's voice dripped with derision when he finally acknowledged the human envoy. He gestured toward the man's unadorned attire, the simple data slate tucked under one arm, the lack of ceremonial weaponry. "Earth sends us a bureaucrat," he announced to the court. "A record keeper for a wedding." The crowd embraced the narrative. They saw only what was shown, a slight figure in functional clothing standing too still, making no effort to assert dominance. They measured his worth against their own armored champions and found him lacking. Tension thickened as nobles exchanged knowing glances. This confirmed their assumptions. Humanity was indeed weak, inexperienced, trembling prey before an empire that measured its age in millennia. Whispers circulated about Earth's fledgling starfleet, their limited diplomatic reach, their apparent desperation for this alliance. The king had framed the moment, and his audience accepted the portrait without question. They saw submission where there was strategy, fear where there was focus. Then the bride's voice cut through the murmurs, a low whisper that somehow carried. "My husband will come." Not a plea, a statement of fact. It planted the first seed of doubt. Her eyes didn't waver from the king's even as he laughed. This marriage was never about social ritual or political bonding. It was a staged confrontation from its inception. Earth's countermove was already in motion, hidden within the festivities' elaborate choreography. Every ritual gesture, every exchange of vows served as cover for a deeper game. The king believed he owned the stage. He paced before his court, orchestrating their reactions, savoring his control. But the script wasn't his to write. Calibrated power dynamics shifted with each passing moment. The envoy's stillness became unnerving. His lack of response started to feel less like weakness and more like waiting. The king's insults began to ring hollow, his performance increasingly desperate. He was shouting at a wall that refused to echo. This personal insult, calling the diplomat a clerk, framing him as insignificant, became the test. It was no longer about the bride's humiliation, but about who truly scripted imperial theater. The king had intended to showcase Earth's irrelevance. Instead, he highlighted his own blindness. The alien nobles believed Earth was weak because they judged strength by volume and spectacle. They saw humanity as trembling prey because they could not recognize patience as a form of power. They mistook preparation for panic, strategy for submission. Their entire understanding of dominance was about to be recalibrated. He arrived without weapons, not even a ceremonial blade. The human diplomat walked through the grand archway with the quiet precision of a librarian, returning to his stacks. His uniform remained unadorned, his hands empty. He offered a slight bow to the king, not too deep, not too shallow, then turned and gave the same measured acknowledgement to the lowest-ranked noble in the hall. The courtesy felt almost banal, mundane, dangerous. The room's atmosphere shifted. Mockery curdled into unease with his first words. "I understand there's been some disruption to the proceedings." No anger, no defensiveness, just a calm clinical assessment. His demeanor refused every bait. When the king's guards leveled their energy pikes, he didn't flinch. When courtiers hissed insults in alien tongues, he didn't react. He stood like a man reviewing data, not a husband facing his wife's humiliation. Earth's philosophy surfaced in that calm. Rage is wasteful. Recklessness has no strategic value. Consequences, not emotions, dictate response. He spoke of children's parties and misbehaving guests, a metaphor that hung in the air between them. "When a child throws a tantrum at a celebration," he said, his voice even, "you don't throw a tantrum back. You remove the child. You restore order. The celebration continues." The galactic implications settled over the room. This wasn't about personal insult. It was about systemic disturbance. Strength revealed itself through restraint. Calculation replaced confrontation. The diplomat forced the king into a confrontation with his own overreach. Every imperial insult, every breach of protocol, every smashed gift became a data point in a larger argument. The envoy's approach unveiled a new kind of power, one that didn't need to roar to be heard. It simply waited, observed, recorded. The conflict transformed in real time. What began as a personal feud, a husband defending his wife's honor, became a calculated negotiation between civilizations. The king's performative anger started to look like what it was, theater. The diplomat's silence began to sound like judgment. The unarmed man in the simple uniform had not only entered a hostile court, he had redefined the terms of engagement. He shifted the power dynamic not by demanding respect, but by demonstrating why it was necessary. He turned the king's stage into Earth's negotiating table without raising his voice or lifting a hand. Information became artillery. Memory became the weapon. The diplomat didn't raise his voice. He simply began cataloging vulnerabilities with the precision of a historian reviewing archival records. His tone remained flat, factual, almost academic. Each revelation struck deeper than any physical blow could have. He started with the king's private finances. "The Tyrrhenian debt," he said, unpaid for 17 standard cycles. "Compound interest has increased the principal by 400%. Your creditors grow restless." The king's armored fingers tightened. The diplomat continued without pause. "Your personal armory. The plasma conduits in your flagship's primary battery have not been serviced in 3 years. Fatigue fractures are developing in the containment housings. A single overload could trigger cascade failure." Tension thickened as he moved to family matters. "Your brother's dealings with the Kylos Syndicate. The gambling losses concealed from the Imperial Treasury. The assassination contracts taken out on 2 council members who discovered the embezzlement." Nobles began shifting positions. Alliances recalibrated in real time. The king's household was being dismantled fact by fact. "Skeletons in the closet," the diplomat observed calmly. "You seem to have several." He detailed weapons testing on protected worlds, treaties broken before the ink dried, secret biological experiments on sentient species. Earth's threat emerged not as direct assault but as curated exposure. Each fact was a scalpel, not a hammer. The audience realized Earth was new to galactic councils, but not inexperienced. They had been watching longer than anyone suspected. Knowledge served as both shield and weapon. The diplomat's revelations protected him better than any energy shield. The king couldn't attack the messenger when the message contained truths that could destabilize his reign. Every attempted interruption was met with another documented fact, another verified incident, another witness account. The long, silent build-up revealed itself as architectural strategy. Years of observation, analysis, and intelligence gathering culminated in this moment. The diplomat wasn't improvising. He was reading from a prepared assessment, each point timed for maximum impact. The king's hidden vulnerabilities weren't just discovered, they were mapped, cross-referenced, and ready for deployment. What devastating information did Earth's envoy reveal? The complete structural weakness of the king's power. Not just financial debts or military neglect, but the psychological leverage points. Which advisors could be bought, which generals were disillusioned, which family members plotted succession. He exposed the king's reliance on fear rather than loyalty, showing how quickly that fear could be turned against him. The envoy revealed that Earth didn't need weapons to win a conflict. They simply needed to show the Empire its own reflection. Every guest was watched. Every corridor was counted. The diplomat's eyes never left the king's face as he spoke, but his awareness seemed to encompass the entire hall. He noted the hidden armory beneath their feet without glancing down. The security systems in this chamber have 12 blind spots, he stated. Your patrol rotations are predictable. Your guards favor their right side when turning. The king's confidence began to fracture at the edges. Tension mounted as the diplomat described the exchange of wine and ritual decor. The serving drones follow programmed routes. Their tray configurations correspond to security sectors. The vintage served to the Vorn delegation was 3 degrees warmer than protocol requires, a deliberate insult, they noted. Each detail revealed larger truths about the Empire's discipline, its loyalties, its vulnerabilities. The floating flames dimmed precisely on schedule as refreshment trays arrived in perfect sequence. Their movement pattern mapped the security grid like a living diagram. Then the bride rose. Her transformation was instantaneous. The posture of submission fell away like discarded clothing. She stepped forward, her torn wedding gown becoming a badge of purpose rather than shame. Do you think I was here only to wed? Her voice carried across the silent hall, clear and sharp. You thought me fragile. A decoration. A pawn. She looked at the king with something close to pity. I was the bait, and you swallowed the hook. She declared herself not as victim but as operative. Her role became devastatingly clear. Every moment of perceived humiliation had been calculated. The torn veil, the trampled gifts, the king's performance, all had served Earth's purpose. The ritual spectacle transformed into a trap for vanity. The king's need to dominate had been his undoing. He had focused on breaking the bride while Earth's agents mapped his defenses, identified his weaknesses, cataloged his allies and enemies. The turning point arrived with silent finality. Humiliation became strategic leverage. The king's attempt to demonstrate power had given Earth everything it needed. How had Earth's operatives mapped every corridor and watched every guest? Through the wedding itself. The ceremony provided perfect cover. Human servants were analysts. Diplomatic aides were surveillance specialists. The floral arrangements contained sensors. The musical compositions encoded scanning pulses. Every tradition was exploited. Every ritual repurposed. They didn't infiltrate the security. They built their intelligence gathering into the event's very structure. The king's arrogance blinded him to the operation unfolding in his own hall. He was so focused on the spectacle of dominance that he never saw the observers noting his every weakness, the technicians mapping his every corridor, the strategists turning his pride into their battlefield. This was never about love. It was about leverage. The marriage alliance was presented as a diplomatic gesture, a bridge between civilizations. Earth offered their cultural ambassador. The Empire offered a minor royal cousin. The galaxy saw a typical political union, a young species seeking protection through marriage. They misunderstood completely. The wedding served as perfect cover for intelligence gathering. Every guest became a data point. Their seating arrangements revealed political alliances. Their gifts indicated technological capabilities. Their conversations, captured by directional microphones woven into floral arrangements, provided psychological profiles. Every guard's patrol route was timed. Every ritual movement was analyzed for strategic value. The king's arrogance blinded him to the operation unfolding in his own hall. He saw a ceremony. Earth saw a reconnaissance mission. Earth's patience manifested in meticulous preparation. They spent 18 months planning the wedding details. Each tradition was studied, each custom reverse-engineered for intelligence value. The guest list was cross-referenced with known dissidents and loyalists. The catering service employed 17 human operatives trained in behavioral analysis. The music selection contained subharmonic frequencies that mapped the room's acoustics for optimal surveillance. Every element served dual purposes. The couple's relationship became an operational partnership. Their first meeting wasn't romantic. It was a strategy session. Their vows contained coded language. Their rings housed communication devices. Their public displays of affection coordinated signal transfers. They practiced their roles until every glance, every touch, every hesitation served the mission. The personal union transformed into a galactic strategic asset. What began as two people became a single intelligence apparatus. The real purpose behind the marriage alliance was penetration. Not political penetration, not cultural penetration, physical and informational access to the heart of the empire. Earth needed to see the king's court from the inside. They needed to walk his corridors, study his security, analyze his inner circle. A traditional diplomatic mission would have been limited, monitored, restricted. A wedding invitation granted unprecedented access. The galaxy thought Earth was seeking protection through marriage. Earth was actually conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in interstellar history. They used the king's vanity against him. His desire for a spectacle became their opportunity for observation. His need to demonstrate dominance became their chance to document weaknesses. The wedding wasn't an alliance. It was an audit. They thought they controlled the narrative. The king's humiliation attempt didn't just backfire. It detonated the entire foundation of his authority. His performance of dominance became evidence in Earth's case against him. The torn veil, the crushed gifts, the public insults, each act was meticulously documented from multiple angles. The court's laughter turned to silence as they realized they weren't spectators. They were witnesses. The bride's declaration recontextualized every previous moment. I was bait and you swallowed the hook. Her words hung in the crystalline air, stripping the ceremony of its intended meaning. The humiliation ritual wasn't a display of imperial power. It was a vulnerability assessment. The king's need to dominate had exposed his weaknesses, his predictable patterns, his psychological triggers. Every insult he hurled revealed more about his insecurities than Earth's limitations. The couple transformed shame into operational advantage. Their perceived weakness became tactical strength. While the king focused on breaking them publicly, they gathered intelligence. The diplomat's calm cataloging of vulnerabilities wasn't a defense. It was the culmination of months of observation. The bride's stoic endurance wasn't submission, it was data collection under pressure. They turned the Emperor's theater into their reconnaissance mission. Public spectacle became intelligence operation broadcast. The wedding wasn't just observed, it was streamed across 12 galactic networks. Earth's technicians had embedded transmission protocols in the ceremonial decorations. The crystal archways functioned as antenna arrays. The floating candles served as signal repeaters. Every moment of the king's performance reached audiences he never intended. The galaxy watched not just a wedding, but an imperial audit in real time. Earth revealed its true capabilities through restraint. They didn't deploy weapons. They deployed truth. The demonstration wasn't about military might, but intelligence superiority. They showed they could penetrate the most secure events, map the most guarded spaces, and understand imperial psychology better than the empire understood itself. Vanity became the tyrant's ultimate vulnerability. The king's need for spectacle created the perfect conditions for exposure. His love of theater provided the stage. His arrogance wrote the script. His insecurity directed the performance. The resolution arrived with quiet finality. Personal defeat became galactic strategic victory. The king stood exposed before his court, his allies, his enemies. His humiliation was complete, but not in the way he intended. He had sought to demonstrate Earth's weakness. Instead, he revealed his own. The human couple turned their public humiliation into a galaxy-wide intelligence operation by understanding one fundamental principle. The best intelligence comes from letting the enemy reveal himself. They didn't need to steal secrets. They simply needed to create conditions where secrets would be offered voluntarily. The wedding provided the perfect cover, a celebration that everyone would attend, a spectacle no one would question, a stage where arrogance would inevitably perform. They used the king's vanity as their primary intelligence-gathering tool. His need to dominate became their means of discovery. His performance of power became their educational broadcast. Ships appeared at the system's edge. They didn't fire. No warning shots. No aggressive maneuvers. The human fleet simply emerged from jump space and settled into formation. Their presence alone communicated more than any attack could. 73 vessels arranged in perfect tactical spacing, battle-ready but weapons dormant, shields at full strength but oriented defensively. Tension mounted across Imperial command networks. The fleet's restraint became its own language. Their formation suggested containment rather than assault. Their positioning blocked primary trade routes without violating treaties. They occupied strategic shadows rather than charging into open conflict. Every move was calculated to demonstrate capability without committing aggression. Calm comm signals began filtering through encrypted channels. Target lock stable. Fleet holding position. The messages were crisp, professional, devoid of emotion. They weren't threats. They were status reports. Additional transmissions listed orbital trajectories, weapon cooldown cycles, reserve power levels. The data stream was relentless, precise, intimidating in its transparency. The only personal message was brief. Someone tell Dad we're waiting. The phrase carried layered meaning, informal yet deliberate. It referenced the king directly while dismissing his authority. It suggested both patience and inevitability. The message didn't demand surrender. It simply noted readiness. Military might transformed into social theater demanding respect. The fleet's presence became a performance of discipline. Their perfect formation showed training beyond imperial standards. Their silent vigilance demonstrated endurance the Empire couldn't match. Their refusal to fire revealed confidence that went beyond artillery. They weren't just showing strength. They were showing control. The king's countermeasure seemed primitive by comparison. He activated planetary defense systems. He scrambled attack wings. He even drew his ceremonial blade during the emergency council meeting. The gestures felt theatrical, reactive, desperate. His traditional displays of power contrasted sharply with Earth's quiet assurance. He brandished weapons while they demonstrated restraint. Earth's ultimate weapon emerged as patient, intelligent posturing. Their ships maintained position for 18 hours without variation. Crew rotations occurred with clockwork precision. Supply drones transferred between vessels without disrupting formations. They exhibited logistical perfection under pressure. The Empire's forces grew fatigued. Their alert status drained power reserves. Their commanders argued over response protocols. The resolution arrived without fanfare. The display of force became a display of restraint. Earth's fleet never advanced, never threatened, never even raised weapon emplacements. They simply remained, watching, waiting. Their presence alone forced the Empire to confront its own limitations. The king's military could attack, but they couldn't guarantee victory. They could defend, but they couldn't maintain alert status indefinitely. What terrifying display of restraint did Earth's fleet demonstrate? Perfect discipline under provocation, total coordination without communication, absolute readiness without aggression. They showed that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice not to. Their ships held formation while Imperial forces grew increasingly disordered. Their silence grew louder than any battle cry. Their patience became more threatening than any weapon. They demonstrated that the most powerful move is often not making one at all. The fleet's restraint forced the Empire to exhaust itself, trying to anticipate an attack that never came. They turned military presence into psychological warfare. They weaponized patience. They chose knowledge over destruction. The diplomat explained Earth's strategic choice with the patience of a professor addressing a slow student. He stood calmly before the king, his data slate still resting undisturbed in his hand. The decision wasn't made from weakness. It was made from centuries of human experience with conflict. Earth had learned that military victory often created power vacuums. It left infrastructure shattered and populations hostile. Information warfare achieved permanent results without rubble. The king couldn't comprehend warfare without violence. His armored fingers twitched toward his ceremonial blade as the diplomat spoke. To him, power meant fleets and artillery. Dominance required visible submission. The concept of winning without firing a shot seemed illogical, almost offensive. He kept waiting for the human ships to attack, for the diplomat to demand surrender. Neither came. Information warfare destroys regimes without damaging infrastructure. The diplomat detailed how exposed truths collapse governments from within. Rebellions ignite when citizens see corruption. Alliances fracture when secrets surface. The physical structures remain intact. The palaces, the spaceports, the power grids. But the authority that controlled them dissolves. Reconstruction becomes simpler when the foundations are physically sound. Public exposure reconfigures political alliances instantly. The diplomat noted how nobles were already recalibrating their positions. Those who had supported the king now distanced themselves. Those who had been neutral now saw advantage in aligning with Earth. The galactic balance shifted not through force but through revealed truth. The king's court transformed from unified support to calculated self-preservation. The galaxy's moral calculus shifted with revealed truths. Societies that had tolerated the king's excesses now confronted them publicly. The diplomat's broadcast forced every civilization to examine their complicity. The unspoken agreements that maintained imperial power became untenable when exposed to light. Ethical positions that seemed flexible became rigid under scrutiny. Earth's memory proved more potent than any fleet. The diplomat's archives contained not just military data, but cultural patterns, psychological profiles, economic dependencies. He could predict reactions because he understood motivations. This wasn't merely intelligence gathering. It was comprehensive understanding. The Empire's actions became predictable because Earth knew its foundations better than the king did. The diplomat's statement hung in the air. This was not war. This was education. He wasn't conquering. He was revealing. The goal wasn't submission, but understanding. He forced the galaxy to confront uncomfortable truths about power, morality, and consequence. The lesson extended beyond the imperial throne room to every watching civilization. Civilizational pedagogy through unveiling rather than destruction became Earth's method. They taught through demonstration rather than domination. The diplomat showed that true power lies in understanding, not in force. He revealed that the strongest empires aren't those with the largest fleets, but those with the deepest knowledge. The resolution arrived without explosions or invasions. It came through the simple, terrifying power of truth. The diplomat chose information warfare because it achieved permanent change. Military destruction would have created resentment and future conflict. Exposure created accountability. It forced the galaxy to evolve rather than simply rebuild. It demonstrated that the most effective weapon isn't the one that destroys bodies, but the one that changes minds. The choice wasn't between war and peace. It was between repeated conflict and lasting resolution. Earth opted for the solution that would endure. Private crimes became public reckoning. The diplomat tapped his data slate once. A soft chime echoed through the hall. Then the walls vanished. Not literally. The crystal arches remained, but every surface became a display screen. The broadcast sequence initiated across 12 galactic networks simultaneously. The king's private council chamber appeared on the main archway. His voice filled the room, discussing weapons testing on protected worlds. Noble reactions shifted from amusement to fear. The initial laughter died in their throats. Those who had smiled at the humans' humiliation now watched their own secrets unfold. The Vorn matriarch saw her daughter's ransom payment to pirates. The Zrithian ambassador witnessed his private meeting with rebel leaders. Each screen showed different crimes, different betrayals, different compromises. The audience realized they weren't watching a unified broadcast. They were receiving personalized revelations. Skeletons in closets emerged for galactic audience. The king's regime exposed itself through its own crimes. There was no edited footage, no manipulated recordings, just raw archival data presented with brutal clarity. The king's voice ordering planetary bombardments, financial records showing embezzlement from disaster relief funds, genetic experiments on sentient species. Each revelation built upon the last, creating an undeniable pattern of corruption. Political alignments reconfigured in real time. Nobles began shifting away from the king's platform. Ambassadors activated secure comms to their home governments. Military commanders recalibrated defense postures. The broadcast wasn't just exposing the king, it was exposing everyone who had enabled him. Those who had benefited from his corruption now faced public accounting. Alliances that had seemed solid began fracturing under the weight of revealed complicity. Earth's patience yielded irreversible reputational damage. The diplomat hadn't just collected information, he had curated it for maximum impact. Each revelation targeted specific pressure points in the galactic political structure. The timing was precise, the sequencing deliberate. The broadcast ensured that no one could claim ignorance or distance themselves without consequence. The damage wasn't just to the king's reputation, it was to the entire system that supported him. The diplomat's statement cut through the chaos. I simply ensured the galaxy could watch. His words were calm, almost detached. He hadn't created the crimes. He hadn't manufactured the evidence. He had merely arranged the viewing. The king's own actions became his indictment. His recorded words became his confession. The regime's documentation became its sentence. Resolution came through televised confession of empire-level crimes. The broadcast didn't need commentary or analysis. The facts spoke for themselves. The evidence mounted with relentless precision. Financial records, military orders, private communications. Each piece fitted into a larger pattern of systemic corruption. The king's attempts to silence the broadcast only made him look more guilty. His anger became part of the evidence. How did broadcasting the king's crimes instantly recalibrate political alliances? It removed the luxury of plausible deniability. It forced every government, every noble house, every military command to choose sides publicly. Those who continued supporting the king would be seen as endorsing his crimes. Those who condemned him could claim moral high ground. The information didn't just expose the king. It created a new political reality where alignment with corruption became untenable. The broadcast turned comfortable arrangements into dangerous associations. It transformed silent acceptance into visible complicity. It made every political relationship a matter of public record. Earth didn't invent this. They perfected it. The diplomat stood motionless as the galactic broadcast continued to unfold around them. His voice remained level, almost conversational as he referenced centuries of human strategic development. We've had practice with empires, he said. The pattern repeats across civilizations: overreach, corruption, collapse. He wasn't boasting. He was stating historical fact. The king's expression shifted from rage to dawning realization. He wasn't facing some upstart species. He was confronting accumulated wisdom. Humanity's resilience stemmed from long-game thinking that measured time in civilizations rather than battles. Their history contained countless examples of smaller powers outlasting larger ones through patience and precision. They understood that brute force creates temporary victory. Strategic patience creates permanent change. The art of discovery and timing replaced military aggression. Earth's approach prioritized understanding over assault. They studied their opponents with meticulous care. They learned patterns, identified weaknesses, mapped psychological vulnerabilities. Their strategy wasn't about overwhelming force. It was about perfect timing. They waited for the exact moment when intervention would have maximum effect. They allowed the king to humiliate himself before responding. Information architecture replaced military gambits. The diplomat's data slate contained more destructive potential than any warship. His carefully curated revelations did what plasma cannons could not. They dismantled alliances. They destroyed reputations. They reconfigured political landscapes without damaging physical infrastructure. The strategy focused on systemic change rather than superficial victory. Restraint became the ultimate demonstration of strength. The human fleet's silent vigil at the system's edge communicated more power than any attack. Their refusal to fire showed confidence that went beyond weaponry. They demonstrated that true strength lies in control rather than destruction. The king's aggressive posturing seemed primitive by comparison. The strategy forced the cosmos to confront its own overreach. Earth didn't need to defeat the Empire. They simply needed to show the Empire its own reflection. The broadcast exposed corruption. The revelations highlighted hypocrisy. The diplomat's calm analysis laid bare the systemic failures that made the regime unsustainable. They created conditions where change became inevitable rather than imposed. Resolution came through revelation rather than confrontation. The king's power dissolved not because Earth destroyed it, but because they exposed its foundations as rotten. The galactic community saw the truth and recalibrated accordingly. Alliances shifted. Support evaporated. The regime collapsed under the weight of its own exposed crimes. What ancient Earth strategy allowed humanity to defeat an empire without firing a single shot? The doctrine of strategic patience combined with information warfare. They employed Sun Tzu's principle of winning without fighting. They used the opponent's strength against them. They allowed the king's arrogance to become his vulnerability. His need for spectacle provided their intelligence platform. His aggression became their evidence. Earth didn't conquer the empire. They simply created the conditions where the empire could no longer sustain itself. Their victory came not through force but through the relentless, patient application of truth. They demonstrated that the most powerful weapon isn't the one that destroys bodies, but the one that changes minds. Their strategy transformed military conflict into civilizational education. Nobles recalculated their allegiances. Survival instinct prevailed. The audience confronted irrefutable public truth displayed across every surface of the Crystal Hall. Their private deals, their secret compromises, their whispered conspiracies, all laid bare for the galaxy to witness. There was no denying the evidence, no disputing the recordings. The truth was absolute and unforgiving. Former allies distanced themselves from the king. The Zrithian ambassador took 3 steps back from the throne platform. The Vorn matriarch turned her ceremonial staff toward the human delegation. Military commanders recalculated defense postures in real time. Political alignments shifted like tectonic plates under pressure. Those who had laughed at the humiliation now saw their own vulnerability reflected in the broadcast. Earth's capabilities became undeniable, frightening. They hadn't just gathered intelligence. They had orchestrated this entire confrontation. Their patience spanned years. Their precision exceeded Imperial intelligence services. Their understanding of galactic politics proved deeper than native civilizations. The human fleet's silent vigil at the system's edge demonstrated restraint that felt more threatening than aggression. The galaxy realized humanity's patience and precision. They saw how every moment had been calculated. The wedding invitation accepted. The humiliation endured. The diplomat's calm response. Each step formed part of a larger strategy. Earth hadn't reacted to events. They had shaped them. Their approach revealed a different kind of power, one based on observation rather than domination, understanding rather than force. Debts and enmities recalibrated under new understanding. Noble houses began settling old scores now that protection had vanished. Political favors were called in. Alliances were reevaluated based on who had supported which crimes. The king's network of support unraveled thread by thread. Those who had benefited from corruption now faced accountability. The system that enabled his rule was dismantling itself. The king's fear became isolating, palpable. He stood alone on the dais, his guards uncertain, his advisors silent. His armor seemed suddenly heavy, his ceremonial blade useless. He looked at the faces that had once shown deference and saw only calculation. He realized his power had been illusion built on compliance. Without willing participants, the performance collapsed. Nobles sought alignment with the emerging power. Ambassadors approached the human delegation with new respect. Military officers requested communication channels with Earth's fleet. The smartest ones recognized this wasn't a temporary shift. This was a fundamental reordering of galactic politics. They understood that survival meant adapting to the new reality Earth had created. The political landscape transformed through revealed truth. Corruption lost its protection. Brutality lost its justification. The system that had allowed the king's excesses could no longer sustain itself. Earth hadn't conquered the empire. They had simply turned on the lights. The nobles saw the rot that had been hidden in shadows and made their choices accordingly. Why did the alien nobles' loyalty suddenly shift when they realized Earth's true capabilities? Because they recognized the difference between temporary power and permanent change. The king offered continued corruption with eventual collapse. Earth offered accountability with stability. Their survival instinct told them which path led to endurance. They saw that Earth's patience represented deeper strength than the king's aggression. Their loyalty shifted not to a new master, but to a more sustainable future. They chose the power that built rather than destroyed, that revealed rather than concealed. She was never the victim. She was the catalyst. The bride stepped forward, her torn gown no longer a symbol of humiliation, but a banner of purpose. She claimed her agency definitively, her posture shifting from ceremonial to combat-ready in a single breath. The transformation from pawn to strategic player unfolded in real time, visible to every watching eye in the hall and across the galaxy. Tension crackled as she addressed the king directly. "You thought me fragile," she said, her voice carrying without amplification. "A pawn to break before the galaxy." Her words hung in the air, recontextualizing every previous moment. The torn veil, the trampled gifts, the calculated insults, all now revealed as part of a larger design. Her perceived vulnerability had been deliberate, a calculated performance designed to provoke exactly the response it received. Her role as bait became clear, intentional. She hadn't merely endured the humiliation, she had orchestrated it. Every flinch had been measured, every tear strategically withheld. The king's arrogance had been the variable, but her role had been the constant. She was the spark that ignited Earth's cosmic reckoning, the trigger that set the entire operation in motion. Her willingness to stand at the center of the spectacle made the intelligence gathering possible. The partnership with the diplomat proved operational rather than personal. Their marriage was a strategic alliance in the truest sense. While he analyzed data and prepared revelations, she gathered intelligence through interaction. She noted which nobles laughed loudest, which guards looked away, which advisors exchanged knowing glances. Her observations filled gaps in the surveillance data, providing human context to digital records. The marital alliance became a strategic flagship. What appeared to be a political union was actually a joint command structure. They operated as complementary forces, she the visible catalyst, he the hidden architect. Their coordination was seamless, their timing precise. The king had believed he was breaking a marriage. Instead, he was testing a battle-tested partnership. Resolution arrived as personal dignity transformed into galactic beacon. The bride's declaration proved she was the spark through its perfect timing and devastating effectiveness. She spoke only after all intelligence had been gathered, all vulnerabilities catalogued, all fleet positions established. Her words didn't just defend her honor, they initiated the final phase of Earth's operation. She turned the king's stage into her platform, his spectacle into her broadcast. Her final statement cemented her role. "We are not prey. We are not dolls. We are the storm you invited to dinner." This wasn't just defiance. It was a declaration of strategy revealed. She showed that Earth's strength lay in turning perceived weakness into tactical advantage. Her composure under pressure demonstrated a resilience the Empire couldn't comprehend. Her willingness to be bait showed a commitment to strategy over ego. The spark ignited because she understood something fundamental about power dynamics. True strength isn't about never appearing weak. It's about knowing when to appear weak to make your opponent reveal their true weakness. She allowed the king to believe he was dominant so he would become careless. She gave him the satisfaction of humiliation so he would drop his guard. Her declaration wasn't the beginning of the reckoning. It was the moment the galaxy saw that the reckoning had already been won. Earth didn't want war. They wanted recognition. The diplomat stated it plainly without emphasis, as if commenting on the weather. His words carried the weight of declaration. This was Earth's founding principle, articulated not through grand speeches but through calibrated action. The galaxy now had to adjust to new power dynamics that favored patience over aggression, knowledge over force. Respect became the non-negotiable requirement for relations. The diplomat made this clear without raising his voice. There would be no treaties without mutual recognition, no alliances without equal standing, no diplomacy without basic dignity. This wasn't a request. It was a condition. The galaxy's traditional power games had encountered a new set of rules. The message was unmistakable. Humanity would navigate councils differently. They wouldn't play by established imperial protocols. They wouldn't engage in the usual posturing or threats. Their approach would prioritize observation over intervention, understanding over domination. They would study before speaking, analyze before acting, prepare before engaging. This wasn't inefficiency. It was strategy. Patient observation replaced aggressive expansion. Earth's fleet maintained position without advancing. Their diplomats gathered intelligence without demanding concessions. Their scientists studied alien cultures without seeking exploitation. This patience demonstrated confidence that unsettled traditional powers. They showed that waiting could be more powerful than attacking, that observation could achieve what invasion could not. The king's fears signaled lasting reordering of power. His trembling hands, his uncertain glances, his desperate attempts to reclaim control, all revealed the shift. He wasn't afraid of weapons. He was afraid of the calm certainty behind them. He feared the intelligence that mapped his weaknesses, the patience that outlasted his bluster, the strategy that turned his strengths into vulnerabilities. Earth's smile became weapon as sharp as any blade. The diplomat's slight calm expression unsettled the court more than any battle cry. It conveyed understanding without aggression, confidence without arrogance, power without threat. That smile communicated that Earth knew more than they showed, understood more than they revealed, controlled more than they demonstrated. It was the expression of a civilization that had mastered indirect influence. The civilizational stance was established through action, not proclamation. Earth didn't announce their new doctrine. They demonstrated it. The wedding operation, the intelligence gathering, the fleet positioning, the broadcast revelation, each element showed their approach. They used the king's own stage to demonstrate their philosophy. They turned his aggression into their evidence, his dominance into their case study. What message did Earth send to the galaxy about the difference between seeking war and demanding respect? They demonstrated that war seeks temporary victory through destruction, while respect demands permanent change through understanding. War leaves rubble and resentment. Respect builds foundations for lasting relations. War proves who can destroy. Respect shows who can build. Earth chose the harder path, the one that required patience, intelligence, and restraint. They showed that true power isn't about forcing submission, but about earning recognition. Their message was clear. They would rather wait centuries for respect than win a battle through destruction. This approach redefined interstellar relations, setting a new standard where civilizations would be measured not by their weapons, but by their wisdom, not by their aggression, but by their understanding. The galaxy learned that the most powerful force isn't the ability to destroy, but the capacity to comprehend. They didn't conquer, they remained, watching. The crystal hall grew still after the confrontation, but Earth's presence didn't withdraw. The human fleet maintained position at the system's edge. The diplomat stood calm amid the tension. His data slate remained active. The operation wasn't over because the shouting stopped. It continued through silent observation. The galaxy adjusted to Earth's perpetual observation. Nobles exchanged uneasy glances. Military commanders recalculated defense postures. Ambassadors hesitated before speaking. Every action now felt measured against an unseen standard. The knowledge that Earth was watching changed behavior more effectively than any weapon. Conversations became guarded. Alliances were reconsidered. The simple fact of being observed created its own discipline. The couple's invitation to dance amid wreckage signaled transformation. While servants cleared shattered porcelain and trampled flowers, the diplomat extended his hand to his wife. They moved across the scarred floor with deliberate grace. Their dance wasn't defiance. It was demonstration. They showed that dignity couldn't be broken by external forces. Their composure communicated that the true stage belonged to those who controlled themselves, not those who sought to control others. Humiliation became dignity through strategic patience. The torn wedding gown, the crushed gifts, the public insults all transformed into evidence of endurance. Each slight became a point of strength rather than weakness. The couple's calm response demonstrated that true power lies in how one responds to provocation, not in how one initiates it. Their patience revealed the king's aggression as insecurity rather than strength. Earth redefined the galaxy's moral compass through example. They didn't preach ethics. They demonstrated principles through action. Their restraint showed that power could be exercised without cruelty. Their intelligence gathering proved that understanding surpassed domination. Their willingness to endure humiliation demonstrated that some values were worth temporary discomfort. The galaxy saw an alternative to the cycle of aggression and response. The king's regime was exposed but not immediately destroyed. Earth understood that sudden collapse created chaos. They allowed the truth to work gradually. The broadcast revelations continued circulating. The fleet maintained its position. The diplomat remained available for discussions. They gave the galaxy time to process, to recalibrate, to choose new alignments consciously rather than reactively. Long-term consequences took priority over short-term victories. Earth wasn't interested in humiliating the king further. They sought systemic change. Their patience allowed corrupt structures to unravel naturally. Their observation prevented new corruptions from forming. They demonstrated that the most permanent victories come through evolution rather than revolution. through changed minds rather than broken bodies. Persistent presence became strategic advantage. The human delegation didn't withdraw after the confrontation. They established a permanent embassy. Their ships remained on patrol routes. Their analysts continued monitoring political developments. This ongoing engagement prevented backsliding into old patterns. It ensured that the revealed truths remained present in galactic consciousness. Earth demonstrated that patience could be more powerful than immediate destruction through sustained engagement. They showed that watching could achieve what attacking could not. Their fleet's silent vigil communicated more threat than any bombardment. Their continued diplomatic presence influenced more change than any ultimatum. Their unwavering observation created constant accountability. They proved that the most effective power is often the power that waits, watches, and understands before acting. Their patience wasn't passive. It was the most active form of engagement, requiring more discipline than aggression, more strength than destruction, more courage than confrontation. Years of silence preceded this single moment. The depth of Earth's preparation revealed itself gradually, like layers of ancient stratification exposed by erosion. Every gesture in the crystal hall, every reaction from the alien nobles, every predictable move by the king, all had been anticipated through meticulous study. The operation represented the culmination of decades of work, each year adding another layer of understanding to the strategic blueprint. The galaxy realized how thoroughly they had been studied. Cultural nuances were cataloged with anthropological precision. Political weaknesses were mapped with surgical accuracy. Social hierarchies were understood better than the natives comprehended them themselves. The king's personal history, his psychological triggers, his patterns of aggression, all existed in detailed profiles within Earth's archives. This wasn't just intelligence gathering. It was comprehensive cultural penetration. Humanity's resilience was proven through this meticulous planning. Their strategy followed a clear pattern: preparation, adaptation, correction when pressed. They didn't assume they knew everything. They built systems to learn everything. When the king tore the veil, they adapted. When he insulted the diplomat, they corrected. Each provocation was met with calibrated response, each aggression with precise countermeasure. The king's every move was anticipated and accounted for. His need for spectacle, his reliance on public humiliation, his predictable escalation patterns. Earth's analysts had run simulations covering thousands of scenarios. They knew how he would react to defiance, to calmness, to revealed truths. His aggression became data points in their equation. His arrogance became variables in their calculation. Revealed preparation demonstrated ultimate superiority. The diplomat's calm demeanor wasn't natural composure. It was the result of exhaustive rehearsal. His precise responses weren't improvisation. They were selected from pre-approved strategic options. His knowledge of the king's vulnerabilities came from years of intelligence synthesis. Every aspect was planned, from the fleet's arrival timing to the broadcast's activation sequence. What did Earth's operation reveal about humanity's approach to galactic politics? They demonstrated that victory comes through understanding, not through force. Their strategy prioritized knowledge over weapons, preparation over aggression, patience over impulse. They showed that the most powerful civilizations aren't those with the largest fleets, but those with the deepest understanding. They proved that true strength lies in the willingness to study, to learn, to wait. Earth's approach rejected imperial posturing. They didn't seek domination through intimidation. They sought influence through comprehension. Their preparation allowed them to turn the king's strengths into vulnerabilities, his confidence into liability. They used his own nature against him, his own court as their classroom, his own aggression as their evidence. The operation revealed that humanity treats diplomacy as architecture rather than combat. They build foundations slowly, carefully, with attention to structural integrity. They understand that lasting influence comes from comprehensive knowledge, not temporary superiority. Their approach demands patience but delivers permanent results. They demonstrated that in galactic politics the best weapon is understanding, and the best strategy is preparation. This method revealed Earth as a different kind of interstellar power, one that measures success in centuries rather than battles, one that values intelligence over artillery, one that prefers to understand its opponents rather than destroy them. Their preparation showed that humanity's greatest strength isn't their technology or their fleet. It's their patience, their curiosity, their relentless pursuit of understanding. They prove that in the cosmic arena, those who prepare thoroughly enough never need to fight desperately. Power stopped being about fleets, started being about information. The galaxy confronted redefined power concepts as Earth's strategy unfolded. For millennia, cosmic dominance meant weapons, ships, visible strength. Earth introduced a different calculus. Their approach measured power in data points, psychological profiles, predictive models. Ancient hierarchies built on military might faced irrelevance. Tension grew as the ancient cosmic dominance model challenged this new paradigm. Traditional powers watched their foundations crumble. The king's armored battalions meant nothing against revealed truths. His flagship's weapons couldn't target broadcast signals. His imperial decrees couldn't silence factual evidence. The very definition of strength required fundamental reconsideration. Earth's approach forced reevaluation of what counts as strength. They demonstrated that understanding surpasses force. Knowledge outweighs artillery. Patience defeats aggression. Their victory came not through destruction but through comprehension. They showed that true power lies in anticipation rather than reaction, in preparation rather than provocation. Narrative leverage replaced military leverage. The diplomat controlled the story rather than the battlefield. He shaped perceptions rather than destroying ships. The king's traditional power became obsolete because it relied on outdated metrics. His weapons required targets. His threats demanded submission. Earth's strategy operated beyond these limitations. Galactic relations must adapt to new rules. The old protocols of dominance and submission no longer applied. Alliances would now form around information sharing rather than mutual defense. Influence would come through understanding rather than intimidation. The diplomatic landscape transformed from military posturing to intellectual engagement. Humanity's capacity to anticipate outcomes becomes key advantage. Their strategists didn't just react to events. They predicted them. They built models accounting for cultural patterns, psychological tendencies, historical precedents. This foresight allowed them to position forces before conflicts emerged, to gather intelligence before secrets were needed, to understand opponents better than they understood themselves. Resolution arrived as fundamental shift in interstellar power dynamics. The balance no longer favored those with the largest fleets. It favored those with the deepest understanding. Civilizations would now be measured by their knowledge rather than their weapons, by their wisdom rather than their warships, by their comprehension rather than their conquests. Earth's actions forced the galaxy to reconsider the nature of power itself by demonstrating that control comes through understanding rather than force. They showed that the ability to anticipate reactions matters more than the capacity to destroy targets. They proved that psychological leverage outweighs military advantage. The king's humiliation wasn't just personal defeat. It was evidence of systemic change. His traditional weapons became useless against Earth's strategic patience. His military might couldn't counter their information superiority. His dominance rituals couldn't overcome their psychological profiling. The galaxy learned that true power wears neither armor nor carries weapons. It carries data slates and understands patterns. It values patience over aggression, observation over intervention, knowledge over destruction. Earth didn't just win a confrontation, they redefined the rules of engagement. They showed that in the cosmic arena, the most powerful civilization isn't the one that can destroy others, but the one that understands them completely. This recalibration of power dynamics would echo through interstellar relations for generations, establishing new standards for what truly constitutes strength in an interconnected galaxy. The king understood too late. The game had changed. He stood alone on his dais, armored hands trembling slightly as the final pieces aligned. His traditional weapons proved useless against this new warfare. The energy pikes, the battle cruisers, the orbital platforms, all designed for confrontations that never arrived. Earth's patience became terrifyingly intelligent strategic posturing. They didn't fight the war he prepared for. They fought a war he couldn't comprehend. The monarch confronted his irreversible situation. His guards stood uncertain, their weapons lowered. His advisors had withdrawn. The broadcast continued showing his crimes to the galaxy. The human fleet maintained perfect formation at the system's edge. Every traditional option had been neutralized without a single shot fired. His military might meant nothing against revealed truth. His political influence dissolved under exposure. His authority evaporated through sheer comprehension. Tension solidified into grim acceptance. The diplomat's willingness to bear risk for longer-term victory became apparent. Earth had risked their ambassador. They had risked international humiliation. They had positioned their entire fleet within attack range, all calculated risks for strategic gains. They played a deeper game with higher stakes, accepting temporary vulnerability for permanent advantage. Final realization dawned. We have patience enough to wait and resolve enough to end. The phrase echoed in the silent hall. Earth's approach combined infinite patience with absolute determination. They would wait centuries for the right moment, but when they acted, they finished what they started. Their restraint wasn't weakness. It was concentration. Their patience wasn't hesitation. It was preparation. Human fleets formed a surrounding net communicating both restraint and consequences. Their positioning showed they could destroy but chose not to. Their silence demonstrated they would wait, but not forever. The message was clear. Compliance would be met with patience, resistance with finality. This balance between discipline and capability redefined power dynamics entirely. The mask of politeness revealed something far older and colder beneath. The diplomat's calm demeanor wasn't just professional courtesy. It was the surface of deep, ancient strategy. His slight bow wasn't submission. It was centuries of cultural observation refined to precise gesture. His quiet voice wasn't weakness. It was the calm of absolute certainty. Traditional power was defeated by redefined conflict. The king's fleets couldn't target broadcast signals. His weapons couldn't destroy revealed truth. His threats couldn't silence galactic opinion. Earth changed the battlefield from physical to informational, from military to psychological, from immediate to eternal. Victory no longer meant destroying enemies. It meant making enemies irrelevant. The king's ultimate realization about Earth's capabilities and intentions was that they operated on a different strategic plane entirely. Their power came from understanding rather than force, from patience rather than aggression, from knowledge rather than destruction. They didn't want to conquer his empire. They wanted to make his type of empire obsolete. Their intention wasn't to defeat him, but to demonstrate why his approach to power was fundamentally flawed. They showed that true strength lies in comprehension, not in domination, in building rather than breaking, in understanding rather than intimidating. His realization was that he wasn't facing a new enemy, but a new definition of power itself. Earth didn't win through strength. They won through patience. Hours of silence became their weapon. The galaxy watched and learned. True power wears a smile, not a blade. It rests in restraint. It speaks through data, not threats. Humanity's resilience set a new standard. Their victory redefined cosmic relations. The diplomat's calm, the fleet's stillness, the bride's composure, each demonstrated that understanding outlasts aggression. Respect became the currency of power. Earth didn't seek to rule. They asked to be heard, and in the quiet that followed, the universe listened.